Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join His mission.
Back in the 1860s, 70s, 80s, the churches in America finally were waking up to that fact that Muslims were out there in the Middle East and they needed the gospel. It was a student volunteer movement, all this.
The missionary generations.
They launched out to the Muslim world, and they found out that there was Christians there called Orthodox and Roman Catholic. And they found out that they were praying to saints and didn't know the Bibles at all, and that they were the biggest stumbling block to the Muslims, because the number one sin in Islam is called shirk in Arabic, which means to associate a human being with God. Suddenly you see the problem. This is satanically invented. Islam came after Christianity, and so it's Satan's masterpiece. Mm-hmm. But so they come out of Arabia originally, and they meet all these Orthodox Christians who are praying to Mary and to the saints, committing the number one sin of associating people with God and praying to people. And so
to them it's polytheism.
Exactly. And so they said, well, we just better take over these people because they're so messed up. And so the mission leaders then said, wow, we got a problem here. Stop witnessing to the Muslims and get the Orthodox and the Catholics into true faith and following Jesus and living out biblically. And then they will win the Muslims, was the idea. Not realizing after centuries of persecution by the Muslims, when we later on were challenging, let's say, Christians in Egypt, good Bible-believing, godly Christians, what about reaching the Muslims? They're going to hell. An elder told me at the best church in Egypt, best place for them.
Wow. And
before we're judgmental of that, if your family had been second-class citizens and treated so bad under Muslims, and their parents and their parents and their parents and their parents, you probably wouldn't be oozing with compassion for Muslims either.
No, you'd be kind of following the footsteps of Jonah. Nineveh, I'm going the opposite direction.
Hence the need for expats who don't have that history.
Yes.
And it wasn't until converted Christians, or real Christians, biblical Christians, saw the example of foreigners reaching out to Muslims that they thought, oh, maybe this is what we ought to do.
Yeah.
And so all these pastors who would like to lower their missions budget by saying, let's support the natives, need to realize that particularly in the Muslim countries, the Christians who lived under Islam, they need examples of compassion towards the Muslims. And then finally they begin to realize, we could do better than these foreigners.
Yeah.
And slowly, you want to see it, we would become less and they would become more.
Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join His mission. This podcast is powered by Within Reach Global. Subscribe, watch, and listen on YouTube today. Visit missionspulse.com.